Hey, training plants every day. George Scoville coming at you from the STEM lab. Now, I don't know what exactly teed off this topic for exactly what it is, and that's rules for drinking. And if you want to do it efficiently and properly, again, I'm not the biggest drinker in the world. I really don't even like to drink. Um, Again, I'm on probation right now, so not for drinking or alcohol related things like that. Again, it's not my forte of choice. But there was always some simple rules that I followed if I ever wanted to go out or something like that, or go to the bar, or just drink at a party or something like that back in my heyday, right? For whatever it was. And some of my simple rules, for what it was, because I'm such a lightweight when it comes to alcohol, I get hammered real fast. Again, given your body frame and some general mechanics too, that obviously I'm dealing with a guy category of 145s to 155s kind of weight class. That's usually where I fluctuate in my system. So again, I would say after what this is, you can add 10-20 minutes, subtract it from your system, but just work this off as your general baseline. And again, if you're a female drinking or something like that under these standards, kind of play the average to, whether you're a guy or a girl, your tolerance levels. That's shaky at best, let's face it, to the reality of what's happening. Again, you can get hammered and whatever and think that you're functioning okay, but there's little things that you might be doing that you don't realize that you're really doing. All right, firstly, and what I generally found is a rule of thumb to this is you can have, depending on if you're driving, obviously that's a beer an hour to not be over the .08 marker, and that's going to fluctuate slightly after that 155 average to a little sooner or a little later. And also, if you eat and have that variable into that, you're adding those weight classes, and if you eat into that, how much you're eating, is it the right kind of foods, that's going to help a little bit. But again, that only really works to one beer per hour as your scientific modeled baseline for what that is. But let's say you want to have fun and go beyond that ratio of that, and to have a little bit of fun with it. Let's face it, I would assume even myself as a lightweight, as much as I am, I can push that to myself. Probably I'm drunk if I put down 3 bottles of Budweiser in an hour. I'm probably pretty lit, and I'm certainly feeling it. 4, I'm probably smashed. 5, I'm probably puking if you put that much into an hour. But my general rule of thumb is what I like to do is I would put down, I would always pace myself in the beginning. As a general thumb, I would take the first one and I would drink that over the course of a half hour. I would baby that thing for a half hour, and I would put 2 down like that in the first hour. Pretty straightforward, pretty simple. That gives you an hour to hang out and chill and do whatever you want to do. Beyond that notation of it, that's going to start to set you up, that kind of same ratio. In 2 hours, you're basically at 2 beers in your system at once. Again, this is not a solid baseline. Again, even if your weight, you're a 180, 200 pounds, fat or muscle, again, depending on what your tolerances are to what it is, that's going to be a fairly, we're not talking about driving categories. We're just talking about how you act, how aware you are to your situations, and not just being so plowed that you black out at some point in time. And beyond that, after about that third hour, I would usually pace that down to a beer or 2 beers, and that's really, really modest. And if you start pushing that in the third hour to another 2 beer set, you're going to be probably pretty drunk for a while over that standard. Let's face it, not everybody eats every 3 hours, but that's about that marker. You're going to be about 3 beers into that third hour, and you're partying, having a good time. More than likely, unless it's just some high school party or a college party where there's nothing but booze around, family reunions and what have you, there's probably going to be food around as well. And make sure you eat. Now, people sometimes take in consideration, you know, every time you drink, that's going to be calories. And the more you eat with that system, that's going to be just more calories into your system. So if you're worried about your body chemistry like that, or your figure or whatever, your workout routine, how you're going to feel in the morning, all that other stuff, you got to take this stuff into consideration as that general rule of thumb. But after that marker, like I said, you can wait about 2 hours, and you're at a party for 5 hours. That's going to put you back down at about roughly that .08 to driving caliber. You should be all right, kind of situation. If you wait another 2 hours, hang around, have your fun, eat a little bit, and not say that you truly had a problem. You're trying to fit it into the cop's perfect spectrum of the reality of a thing. But this is, one of those things I've never really heard people describe correctly. Um, if you are at the bar or something like that, order some bar food, something simple, something little. I know one thing I used to do before I go to do that is I would first, before I'd go to the bar, before I'd go to the party or something like that, I'd always hit up something, whether it be a gas station to get some peanut, a little bag of those 99-cent peanuts or something, just eat that first. And I'd usually get a couple of them. So one, when I first started, I'd hang at the bar for a few hours, and when I got done, what I did is I used to sit out in the vehicle, listen to the radio for an hour or so, something like that. Just run your own sobriety test on yourself, A, B, C, D, and be honest with yourself. Don't get caught for being something stupid. Just like when you're in this situation, just a regular party, not looking like a jackass and just being weird like that. There's nothing wrong with drinking as long as you can handle the science behind it properly. And you have a good time. Get a little weird, and loosen yourself up, and so there's nothing wrong with that. But sometimes people take it to the extreme. They want to down a fifth of Jack Daniels in 5 minutes, and you're gonna have problems. Whether it be getting sick, getting behind the wheel and getting into an accident, or just acting stupid in terms of what you might have to do. See, it's never a problem when you're around your friends, right? That's the reality behind the matter. When you have your friends, that's all that click. It's when the cop gets involved, and now it's not normal no more. Well, it's a lot of that situation when you're around people you don't really know, around friends and situations like that. And again, this is just that. And when you got that in consideration, and you're the minority in that conversation, one extra friend that maybe you don't know or whatever, maybe you want to still take that into consideration for that conversation. But that can make a big difference on how you're handling yourself. You're paying attention to your watch still. You still have your focus, your senses about you, about paying attention to time and your surroundings, and how apt you are to be able to learn psychologically what's going around from people. Just like in a normal conversation when most people are straight, that's what you're doing. And, I get a lot of that's supposed to be about having fun and going out there and not caring about those things. But when in life can you get away with not caring about something where it's not going to turn around and bite you in your ass at some point in time? Just take that into consideration to whatever you're doing. Now, it does apply to meth and heroin and other things like that, which I don't do, but it will if you understand how that same scientific, doctoral, biometrics and physics works, brain chemistry, and it has the same effects under the same standards, and it's probably going to keep you out of your own trouble. And again, it's not that any trouble comes out, you just kind of stop calculating, you stop paying attention for a minute, and that happens. It does. Don't take it the wrong way. Everybody does it. Nobody's perfect. There's no perfect scenario or situation unless you've kind of worked out all of those kinds of timelines and physics and all those things, which is the same thing I do here in the STEM lab, dealing with resumes and all kinds of other stuff, quantum physics and general relativity and quantum gravity and everything like that. These things, even though they don't matter, have weight. They can go down this direction by the arc and the wave and all that other stuff. So again, that's my general rule of thumb. You know, the first 2 beers you do, you can put those down in the first half hour or the first hour, one every half hour. The second beer, if you're having a good time and around people and have a good DD, or are willing to actually wait a little bit of time after you get done and you're eating right, there's nothing wrong with that. If you have a really long time frame where you can play that out, there's not, every 6 beers over 3 hours. That's nothing wrong with that. That's actually a fairly modest conversation. And getting up beyond that, like I said, that's a 6 pack right there. Let's face it, when is it ever a good idea to put down a 12 pack, even over the course of a day, unless you have that day dedicated to it? And even on the backlog of that, are you thinking about what you're going to feel like the next morning? Did you plan out how you're eating that day? You got to think about some of those things before you go out. And like beyond those tricks, like I said, if you know you're going out, just eat a little bit first, and pick up $1 burger from McDonald's or something like that, and just keep it in your vehicle or something like that. So when you do go or something like that, you can sit down and eat something in your system that's going to take that off a little bit. And obviously, when you go wee wee and you go pee, it's going to take a little bit of that alcohol out of your system as well. So make sure you're flushing your system, make sure you're eating, make sure you're pacing yourself and paying attention to the clock. It doesn't take much. We're not talking about being a sissy nanny and absolutely just, oh, I got to do this. Just every once in a while, just look at that. What's my count? If you start losing that count of where you're at, maybe it's a good time to kind of take a break for the day. Is your finances in consideration here? Is this a party with friends? Is this the bar? How many times a week are you doing that? Because like I said, not that stuff really matters, but it can. In the quantum universe, that's going to cost for the week, and bills and everything else. So those are my general notes to the consideration here. Again, there's nothing wrong with it. I'm a marijuana user myself, or I was until I got on probation. I was a grower, so I was taking care of a lot of those finances problems myself, or I was trying to anyways. But again, even with that regimen with it, I tried my best to keep it under a gram a day, smoke, a blunt, a little bit in the morning, a little bit at lunch, and the rest of that blunt at night inside of that gram that I roll up right there. And do the same cycle the next day and next day, and that keeps you at about 7 grams, which is about a quarter a week. We're not talking about something that's a ridiculous cost, somewhere between $50 and $100, depending on who and what and where and why. Same rule there. Usually you're eating, that's going to beat up on your high a little bit. You're drinking Red Bulls or something to go along with that to kind of average out what you're doing, whether it be the workplace and they allow or don't allow, and how you're trying to cover it up or whatever. And you can pretty much, that's clockworks after that point, and who can complain with clockworks? That's general relativity, that's quantum mechanics, and you can certainly bring that kind of aspect into it as a general, that you can control a lot of the matters of your own behaviors and things that affect, that are wave functions, that are tsunamis, and the effect of how you're really doing things and how you're acting, and how well you can stand when those waves hit you invertly because they hit the pond and they come back. All right, not to get too metaphysical on you, or philosophical with you. So those are my rules. That's kind of the game I stayed with, and I've never been in any kind of trouble about it. If anything else, have a DD. Know that you're going to get lit and hammered, and that you have a good game plan on the preset of that. Just like we're doing here, that you can set them up in the same way. If you don't get risky. Follow the rules. Be understandable to what these kinds of functions are meant to do, and you probably get along just fine. It starts when it gets out of control like that. That's where you're probably going to have the problems. Not that you can't have your cake and eat it too. Catch you on the next one.